Once you've become a shambling mass of flesh, there's really no cure. Not in science fiction, anyway. Whether a character is mutated by a virus or absorbed into a hive mind, once their body transforms, it's probably too late. They're too far gone, another character might shout, just so we're clear that person is no more, their humanity digested along with their physical form. I assumed that Humanity Lost, a graphic novel by Callum Diggle, would follow the same conventions. I assumed its narrative of an AI mutating every person into a warped nightmare would not be a story about humanity persevering. I was wrong. Humanity Lost is a stirring tribute to how personhood can endure no matter how altered the flesh. And with a special edition of the first volume now available, I think it's time to take a deeper look at this surprisingly hopeful dystopia.
From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me.
Of all the futures sci-fi imagines for humans, Humanity Lost seems, at a glance, like one of the grimmest. Under the control of a malignant AI, people have become little more than misshapen flesh puppets, forced to conquer planet upon planet in a never-ending cycle. Like the parasitic flood species from Halo, the expansion feels infectious, a contagion spreading through the immune system of the universe. Indeed, both stories take the bodily imagery of disease, with all its pustules and boils, and apply it to an interstellar scale, envisioning a plague transmissible across solar systems, able to infect entire planets. As a result, these cosmic epidemics instill a far greater sense of helplessness than your typical galactic empire. Like a terminal illness, these plagues are unreasoning, non-negotiating forces whose only goal is to spread. But while Halo offers some comfort in a faction of uncorrupted humans fighting back against the pestilent tide, in Humanity Lost, unaltered humanoids are functionally extinct. Our heroes are, instead, an army of post-human mutants led by Deicide, the AI's one-time general who defected along with his troops after learning of humanity's true origins. As former puppets of the AI, Deicide's rebels are just as physically non-human and menacing as the plague they now fight against, a fact that breaks from traditional framing of good and evil. Decades of science fiction have established a widely used visual language to tell audiences who to root for and who to root against. In most narratives, the good guys are the more openly human, whereas the bad guys have their humanity concealed behind armor, or are, in some cases, literally a different species. Indeed, equating the aesthetically human with heroism and the aesthetically monstrous with villainy is a trope as old as storytelling itself.
You're one ugly motherfucker.
In making Deicide and his mutated forces just as monstrous by human standards as the armies they battle against, Humanity Lost presents a version of morality that transcends the physical. It's not just the appearance of the fighters that tell audiences which army to root for, however. Villainy is also frequently coded into the appearance of a faction's technology. Here again, Humanity Lost complicates our assumptions by giving all tech, no matter the affiliation, the same unsettling biological aesthetic. From the womb-like membrane of atmospheric sacs to the intestinal quality of ship interiors, every machine our heroes use is, in some way, disturbing to look at. The visual hostility of Humanity Lost's tech can be better understood in the context of the game's scorn. In that world, each piece of equipment is similarly fleshy. Buttons don't click, they squelch. As a result, the tactile experience of interacting with the world can be downright horrifying. Yet the only way to progress is to let go of your assumptions and use the tools you were given. The technology of Deicide's forces in Humanity Lost similarly prompts the viewer not to judge a book by its biomechanical cover. It's an intriguing challenge, as we audience members are, again, used to technology being cleanly readable. Typical clashes between factions in sci-fi are even color coordinated, with one color of laser designated for the heroes and another for the villains. The comparative messiness of Humanity Lost's biological ships require the viewer to pay closer attention, immersing them further in the work's themes of aesthetic non-determinism. Humanity Lost's fascination with bodily machines, however, is more primal than just a thematic framing device. Detailed cross-sections revealing how a piece of technology works often appear between panels. There's an almost anatomical quality to these spreads, recalling the famous mechanical dissections of artists like Stephen Beastie. Though functionally no more graphic than what one might find in a technical manual, this style of illustration always seemed to me like a kind of dismemberment, silly as that might sound. When I was growing up, the most popular cross-sections were of Star Wars vehicles, detailed autopsies that both fascinated me and unsettled me, as if I were looking at something forbidden, something skinned. In many ways, these types of cross-sections mirror Renaissance-era anatomical illustrations, artwork that was once, quite literally, forbidden. And yet I think these sketches also capture a certain allure, the intrigue of peeling back a casing to reveal hidden inner workings. Humanity Lost's cross-sections possess the same corporeal intrigue, vivisecting the world to revel in the slimiest biological details. Yet another motive lurks behind Humanity Lost's bodily specificity, one most evident in the designs of its extraterrestrials. Like all aspects of the world, the anatomy of these aliens doesn't shy away from the visceral. These are strikingly alien aliens, complete with slippery tentacles and shocking mouth parts. And yet most of these life forms are framed as heroic, working alongside Deicide's forces to stop the AI. Here again, Humanity Lost challenges design precedent, as most friendly extraterrestrials in fiction have what's known as neotenic or infant-like traits, so the audience can distinguish them from the villainous denizens of the stars. Indeed, many stories seem to indicate that if an alien doesn't have big, cuddly eyes, they're out to get you. Another notable work that breaks from this trend is Wayne Barlow's Expedition, a field guide to an alien world that was a key influence on Humanity Lost. None of the extraterrestrials depicted in that book bend to human aesthetics either, and though some of those aliens are dangerous, none are villains. They are all simply alternate forms of life, their startling appearances just biological reality. The tendrilled creatures of Humanity Lost are presented with equal directness, their alienness a fact of nature instead of an indication of their morality. By embracing non-human life in all its shocking detail, Humanity Lost further underscores the idea that an entity's value is more than the sum of its flesh. Even space itself has a thematically appropriate fleshiness. Throughout the series, we catch glimpses of the Flux, a parallel cosmic realm infested with globular particles that clump like blood cells. Like the roiling immaterium of the Warhammer 40k universe, the Flux is a death trap to traverse unassisted, a far more dangerous and bodily method of galactic travel than an archetypal lightspeed jump. Only AI-controlled ships can cross it directly, essentially using it as a highway for interstellar conquest. Yet other species have learned to use the Flux in their own way, extracting its particles to power their ships, suggesting that, like most natural phenomena in Humanity Lost, the Flux is ultimately a morally neutral expression of the universe. The only faction powerful enough to opt out of drawing power from a churning blood dimension are the Tandrax, who instead traverse space in gargantuan star engines that harvest power from solar rays. But even these solar ships have a subtle amoeba-like quality, as if to suggest that despite their advancement, the Tandrax cannot fully separate from the biological. Other inventions of the Tandrax, though, succeed in being more artificial. Perhaps their most impressive feat of engineering is the elliptic plane, a vast network of star engines that are used to move a solar system across the galaxy. Called the Nomad Star, this roaming Tandrax star system is one of the most mind-shatteringly vast megastructures I've seen in fiction, and they have more than one. Indeed, the Tandrax Empire is so sprawling it's described as a rudderless ship, so dependent on inertia that the species has yet to decide if they'll fight back against the AI. In this regard, the more clinical nature of the Tandrax's technology seems a reflection of their detachment from the base reality of the universe, a sign of a species unwilling to get their tentacles dirty. While the Tandrax continue their cold detachment, other species must wade through the blood, struggling to suture the wounds the AI has left in the galaxy. The Uneg are a diminutive, single-footed species who have nonetheless helped slow the tide of war through their invention of the flux drive, the power source used by most allied vessels. While the Uneg have secured their own safety through alliances with other species, not all lifeforms have been so lucky. The Bow are a group of arboreal tripods who were scarcely more advanced than modern-day humans when the AI first found their planet. Now, only a few Bow refugees remain, the rest harvested as raw material to fuel the womb world that was once their home. Such womb worlds are planet-wide biological factories, oozing hellscapes used to grow more ships and troops for the ever-expanding horde of the AI. Despite the Alliance's best efforts, more and more species are being assimilated, and resistance seems futile.
On screen.
There's a somewhat obvious parallel to the AI in Humanity Lost that, for personal reasons, I've been trying to avoid talking about. The Borg from Star Trek The Next Generation aren't the scariest flesh-altering hivemind in this video, but sometimes you watch something when you're little and it gives you nightmares and... Look, the point I'm trying to make is, with their big space cubes and funky teched-out bodies, the Borg might not be frightening to a modern audience. But it was never the effects that made the Borg so horrifying when I was a kid. It was the idea of a force whose singular goal was to strip you of your personhood. Up until the Borg's introduction, the intrepid crew of the Enterprise had had some scrapes with, space jellyfish and whatnot, but they'd mostly made it out unscathed thanks to the power of diplomacy. But the Borg were different. They were a threat that simply could not be dissuaded, could not be convinced to stop consuming.
How do we reason with them? Let them know that we're not a threat.
You don't.
For all their loose wires, there's a chilling mechanical exactness to the Borg. They're a scalpel, interested only in dissection, able to adapt to any deterrent in their unwavering pursuit of assimilating all life. That efficient relentlessness is a concept that AI in Humanity Lost expertly recaptures. What hope could exist in the face of such a ravenous epidemic? The body-altering space illnesses of science fiction can make for hair-raisingly effective horror, but there's some comfort to be found in how they're at least not imminent threats. After all, no real disease has ever warped the flesh of so many humans. No real disease has ever destroyed such a high percentage of the population. No real disease has ever... You can feel the twist coming, huh? Okay, let's jump right in. By 1353, the bubonic plague had already wiped out anywhere from 30 to 60% of Europe, and around 33% of the Middle East. But the plague did not simply take lives. It changed bodies, rotted skin, raised boils like giant fattening ticks. And to the people who watched their loved ones mutate, who watched the world be consumed in a ceaseless tide of disease, well, I'm sure it wasn't entirely dissimilar from living through an attack from one of the assimilating hive minds of modern sci-fi. You can feel the effect the bubonic plague had just by the number of names survivors had for the disease. Pestilentia, epidemia, moralitas, then later simply the Great Pestilence, the Black Death, or just the plague. For many who experienced this period, who witnessed the mass death, the bodies altered never to return, this illness likely seemed utterly apocalyptic. But the bubonic plague wasn't the end of humanity. Populations slowly recovered, and in some cases, so did individuals, their boils and lesions eventually turning to scar tissue. The same is ultimately true in Star Trek for victims of the Borg's assimilation, which was a huge relief for 8-year-old me. Resistance is futile, the Borg love to say, but in keeping with the show's optimistic vision of the future, this proves to be false. And though Humanity Lost is certainly a grimmer interpretation of our species' destiny, it too ultimately offers a glimmer of hope that this apocalypse is not the end. Deicide's faction has found a way back to humanity, and without getting into specific spoilers, there's evidence the same could be true for other puppets of the AI as well. Their flesh might not change, their bodies never becoming human again, but as Humanity Lost suggests, we aren't flesh. Humanity is more than the physical, more than the aesthetic, an idea that can linger no matter how shambling a mass of flesh might be. There is, as it turns out, one final unaltered human left alive in the universe of Humanity Lost. Though in many respects they're the sole keeper of the dream of humanity, in other respects they're more of a meaningful reminder than a last hope. An important symbol of humanity, to be sure, but at the same time, the more this human finds allies in extraterrestrials and post-humans, the more it becomes apparent that humanity hasn't really disappeared. And there's far more to this ongoing story than I can give away in this video. If you found yourself pulled in by this glorious, fleshy, hopeful narrative, you can support Callum Diggle on Patreon to gain access to the graphic novel for just $1.50. And again, there's a new print edition of the first volume now available, if you'd rather get your hands on a physical copy of this visceral future. Oh, and as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this entry, consider lending your support by liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification icon to stay up to date on all things curious. See you in the next video.